touching on the top prop bets in the NBA today. So looking at the board for today, I'm not sure it's going to be a board right now in which we can truly like feel good about attacking too much. Now, sure, there's going to be some spots in which we can attack, but I am curious as to see what the board will look like this afternoon. And so there's a good chance I'll come out with an afternoon video, and I do want to do some more live streams. Okay. But today wasn't like worthwhile. We're just not getting that many great numbers out there. And I think that's just something on Mondays is what I've noticed, is that on Mondays, the boards that we're getting are just not as good as typically speaking. So let's just look it over, guys. The best prop that we're getting today is going to be Julius Randle over 2.5 threes. The issue is I only have him projected to get 2.3. Now, typically speaking, I do like to favor the sports books. Okay. Typically speaking, but that doesn't get me excited that he's projected to get slightly under that. Okay. Kind of same thing with Clay. Now, 4.5 3-ball attempts made is a lot. Okay. And I guess this would be my favorite one just because he is projected to get over there. And that's the thing with Clay. It's like with Curry off the court, he has been someone that has just been getting out there and chucking. Okay. We can see 16, 19, 13 3-ball attempts. And that's really just Clay as like a DFS asset. It's like if he has a poor night shooting, he's going to be terrible. If he has a good night shooting, he's going to be able to go off. Now, let's pull this up on DK Sportsbook, make sure it's consistent. Typically speaking, I want to look for a number that's going to be over -138. And so we can see they have it set at -135. We look across the other sportsbooks, they're valuing it a little bit higher. The biggest issue that we're going to have with this game is I bet it's going to be a blowout. No. Wow. Huh. Interesting there. I would have put money on the spread being higher than this. Okay, so this should be a good one in theory. So really the bet here is that Clay is going to not be cold shooting the basketball. And if we just look up his per 36 numbers with Clay off the court, he does average around 12 shot attempts per 36 with Steph Curry off the court, and he makes about 4.8. So given the fact that we have him coming off of a poor night shooting, I kind of just expect him to have a better night shooting. It just works that way typically. So we should expect kind of, I don't want to say 19 3-ball attempts, but more close to that. So we got another one here, Luka over 2.5 threes. Okay, I actually don't mind this one as well. The biggest issue that we have there with Luka would be what's our expectation now with Kyrie there? Is he actually going to be soaking up that much usage? And I think we're going to see that number kind of dip with Kyrie there, the usage going away. So I don't know if we'd want to chase that number. That's kind of the biggest issue that we're going to have today and maybe for the next week or so, is that there's going to be a lot of players that, we probably typically would be on, but given the fact that there's been a lot of trades, it's tough to know kind of the real dynamic of that team. And so that's going to be the biggest issue that we're going to be faced with today and for the rest of the week until we figure out what these teams are. And then we got some other ones that are decent. I don't love those ones. Let's look at some under bets that we could potentially do. So Darius Garland under 2.5 3-balls, okay, made, but the projection is set at 2.87. So once again, we are getting a pretty good number there, -138. That's a good number, but he's projected to get over that. Same thing with Terry Rozier with assists, Donovan Mitchell as well, slightly under, but we can see that we're not getting that big of an edge just yet. And if we just look at where the numbers aren't matching up, we're not seeing that big of an edge. Like Jordan Poole, we kind of know still being undervalued a little bit here with both points and assists for the over. Okay, and let's just pull that up again. So we have been hammering kind of Jordan Poole the last couple of games with Curry off the court because the numbers have been too low. He's someone that averages 28 points per 36 with Curry off the court. He has the most minutes with Curry off the court, averages 5.4 assists per 36 and about 3 rebounds. So finally, this number is pretty much correct, I would say. And this number, there's a slight edge that we're getting about per 36 numbers, a decent edge. And this one is far from a lock and load now, whereas we kind of had been loading up on these two. And the thing with Jordan Poole is he is going to have a really poor night shooting sometime soon, it seems like. Just been, playing pretty well recently. Okay. And so can he consistently put up these numbers? Yes, but it's been 3 straight games in a row in which he's really been solid. Now the matchup with Washington is going to be an encouraging matchup. You expect him to go out and have a really solid night like he did the previous time. And I would bet more so on that. So I still think there is an edge to Jordan Poole tonight, especially going against Washington. And I would probably agree that the points and rebounds is probably the way to go. Let's look at his fantasy score, if it's up there. So I think we could actually do fantasy score as well. This number seems a little bit too low as well. The issue is that he's typically not someone that's getting steals or blocks as is. So I don't know. I guess I would just go. Do we do points and rebound? I mean, that's the biggest edge. Averages 28 points per 36 and about 3 rebounds per 36. Yeah, that's probably the way to go. I guess would be rebounds. Okay, that makes sense. We'll do that. Points and rebounds for Jordan Poole. We can see not a pretty board. And that's why I always like to start with that. Have kind of the proper expectations for the day. And like Anthony Simons, we could potentially do over assists. We can see the sportsbooks are kind of valuing that a little bit higher, but we're not seeing like that many like discrepancies with the sportsbooks. Not really any at all. Let's look at the other way around here. Like these aren't big discrepancies either. Like sure, maybe Gordon Hayward under points, rebounds, and assists. That could be something that we do, but he's projected to get slightly over that. And see, that's the issue that we're having. And I would say like that's the biggest problem that the sportsbooks have, that we're going to have, is that the trade deadline happened. And so we don't exactly know what to expect from these teams. So for me, I kind of personally like attacking via fantasy score, at least as it sits right now. The issue is none of these are lock and load bets. So the surprising thing to me is that they are actually giving us these fantasy score prop bets this early in the day. I think they want people to make some uneducated prop bets yesterday. And I think that's why they released all the numbers as early as they could, because it's just gonna be money flowing in, kind of leftovers from the Super Bowl. Okay, so the thing is, the numbers are all tight. They are very tight lines, though, I think because of that as well. The edge today to me kind of seems to potentially be in the fantasy score, and I don't mind Keldon Johnson to be over his fantasy score. Now let's go ahead and break that down. So first and foremost, he needs to be active. Okay, currently questionable. That's number one. Needing to be active, but he's currently probable. Expect him to play. The biggest issue with Keldon Johnson this season has just been playing a lot of minutes. Like he has been the one that had been getting the most consistent minutes, but the thing with the Spurs is they were randomly just taking away minutes from players. Okay, so you can never really truly depend on any particular Spurs player. We do know Devin Vassell is out. Okay, we do know that Trey Jones is out. Jeremy Sochan, currently probable. He's been someone that's been going off recently. Once again, looking back at the minutes, so sporadic there. But we know that there's going to be other players out, like Langford's out, and like they are without Jakob Poeltl, currently on Toronto. So that means about 4 players that were getting a healthy allotment of minutes are going to be out this game. The biggest issue with kind of looking at per 36 numbers is the simple fact that we're going to have small sample size with all those players off the court. Now, Keldon Johnson is someone that really just was really highly effective with them off the court. About 200 minutes going into the sample size, 27 minutes per 36, 6.5 rebounds, 3.8 assists, averaging 48 fantasy points per 36. With those players off the court. So that's obviously a pretty big edge there. And we can see he is someone that is like consistently at this number. And so I kind of want to pull him up here on this page as well, just to see. Okay, so looking at the edge, there is an edge here fantasy score wise with Keldon Johnson. Obviously, there's not going to be any Vegas line for fantasy points, and that's why there's not what the prop line should be based off of the fantasy or based off of the Vegas line. But he averages 32, so that's good. Could get a slight minutes bump. Projection is 30, or prop line based off of minutes would be 37, and then just overall projection 33.5. And let's just go ahead and look at the game as well. I'm sure it's going to be a blowout. 14. Okay, so quite clearly, that's the biggest issue that we have. 14.5 is a ton. But with how banged up they are, like, is he just going to be locked into getting that usage, that increased usage? And the usage is increased by like 1%. So not crazy, but still enough. Look at the last time these two teams played, like 21 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists. So there is something there, it seems like. Maybe let's just see if there's any other prop we can make off of him. Okay, no, that's the only one they're giving us for him right now. So I don't think I need to say this, but quite clearly with this prop, it would just be the minutes with the blowout. Okay, I mean, that's a huge blowout risk, and that's a big worry, obviously. And so that kind of makes me hesitate with Mobley and Jared Allen, although they get a good matchup. Like, I probably would want to attack those, but at the same time, given the matchup, we don't want to go too crazy with that. Now, Jalen Green's number seems too low, like really across the board, especially if you do consider like points in there as well. And this changes as Kevin Porter Jr. is active, okay, but like, Jalen Green's just going to go out there and chuck. Went 0 for 9 from 3-ball range. The fact that he didn't make a single one but still shot 9, I mean, that's pretty encouraging to me. And so I think we could maybe just go back to the points. Now, the matchup with Philly is kind of the same thing with Miami, where you're not exactly chasing the matchup. You're not exactly excited to play the matchup, but his per 36 numbers are well over 21.5 points. And so it really just depends on how he's shooting the basketball. So you could potentially go with points, or you could potentially go with fantasy points. Now, I don't know. I might actually just go points here because it is a good number. We're just betting on him not having a terrible night shooting like he had the previous night. Okay. And if we remember this game against the Kings, in the first half, he was terrible and then ended up getting there. So he's going to chuck if Kevin Porter Jr. is out. And because of that, he is still someone I think we should be looking at on tonight's slate. And then like KJ Martin, I think is someone that we could potentially look at as well. This really just depends on the injury situation for Houston. So like if Kevin Porter Jr. is back, then maybe not. But KJ Martin has been someone that's been gaining a lot of run recently, and he's been, pretty consistent as a fantasy producer. So right now at 25.5, that seems a little bit too low. And so I think this is potentially a spot in which we could jump on the fantasy score. Let's look at that game. Just look at the over and under for that one. Yeah. Okay, so that's why we're getting the good fantasy scores on those guys, is because they're both games that are projected to be, pretty big blowouts. I always typically say, like, if it's 7.5 points, I typically start to worry about a blowout. Well, obviously those two numbers are highly over 13.5 and 14.5 points. That's a lot. That is a lot. Oh, guys, and as well, Philly, okay? I don't know if you guys caught this. Which player was it? I think it was Jabari Smith. Posted a video, like, outside his hotel of fans in Philly, like, out doing stuff. So I don't know. Like, is that a competitive advantage that, like, some of the Houston Rockets players probably did not get a good night's sleep because of Eagles fans going out there and doing stuff? Or maybe the Sixers didn't get a lot of sleep last night because of the town as well. It's a very interesting thought process there. So maybe this could be like a trap game potentially. I don't know. And like, obviously I wouldn't bet on Houston to win, but maybe they could cover because of that. I don't know, but I think there could be something there. And now we get into the ones that I probably like the most. Like Spencer Dinwiddie over fantasy score here is something that's intriguing to me. So in the last game, against the Sixers, wasn't able to really make shots. 2 for 10, 0 for 4. Okay. I typically don't care when a player's coming off of a poor night shooting, because they're typically going to have a better night shooting the next night. I like the fact that he had 6 assists, 6 rebounds, okay? Had a few turnovers, had some personal fouls, but I like the fact that, most likely not going to have that poor night of a shooting again. And with that, the shot attempts should be there more so. And so I think there's going to be a pretty good edge there. Like if he is playing that usage in that usage role that he has been so far with the Brooklyn Nets, like this is going to be a very solid prop line that we're getting for Spencer Dinwiddie. Like I think we'll see it consistently be at 40 as the season progresses. And once again, let's just look at that game. It is a game that's projected to stay close, but not really a high scoring game. And I think that's kind of the theme right now. And it does make sense. Like chemistry issues are going to be a thing. But to me, Spencer Dinwiddie over 33 fantasy points, 33.5 fantasy points is going to be a number that we can chase. The biggest issue with that is that I also do like Mikal Bridges over 3.5 fantasy points as well. I think we are going to see him step into a more prominent role. You know how Halliburton went to the Pacers last year and really saw a huge spike in production? I kind of think we could see that for Bridges. Now, it's not going to be as big. It's not going to be as significant, but I do think we're going to see him have an increase in production. He had already been someone that had been playing pretty well. Now he gets a decent matchup there with New York, and it's encouraging to me. And he has been someone that is a consistent fantasy producer. Like, I don't really think the role that he has with the Nets is going to change from the role that he had with the Suns, except for the fact that he could step into a little bit more usage. Because I think the pecking order is like Dinwiddie, Bridges, Claxton. And so for me, this is a pretty strong, almost safe number that we're getting. And then speaking of Claxton as well, I kind of feel like this number is a little bit too low as well. Like, I feel like one of these two players are going to be able to get their over. Or sorry, not 2 out of these 3 players are going to be able to get their over. Okay, and we look at Claxton last time out against New York, had 44.5 points. Fantasy points, went off. Now, the previous time out, that game was a blowout, 20 minutes. Okay, so the game isn't projected to be a blowout. So if we give him about 16 more minutes or so, I think he easily gets to this projected number. Okay, so I think we might have a potential to game stack here as well. It's just who do we run it back with? Maybe Brunson, maybe Randall. I don't love that too much, but I do think we could easily go Dinwiddie, Bridges, and Claxton and feel decently about it. And so just so you guys can see it as well, let's just look at the biggest edges that we have fantasy point-wise, both over and under. Sengun, I don't really know because that game is projected to be a blowout. Obviously, 13.5 points is a lot. Now, if it doesn't blow and he's able to get 34 minutes, then yeah, sure, he should be able to get over that. I don't know. I don't want to chase that. Luka and Kyrie, just given that the projections are being pulled in based off of their averages. I worry about that, just given the fact that they're going to be playing with each other, soaking into a little bit of usage. Franz Wagner, Wagner, sorry. I think we could do. I just don't want to. Jalen Green was something that's popping up. Keldon Johnson's one I already touched on. We got Claxton popping up there. Dinwiddie popping up there. Like, we are seeing some edges there. Let's go ahead and flip it. Which players should we not be on? And this one's interesting to me. This is one that Damian Lillard, it does seem to make sense where maybe under fantasy points is the way to go. And just pulling up here, Jordan Poole, guys, fantasy score, maybe we don't do that. Maybe we do points and rebounds like it was saying. So we can see Damian Lillard recently has been kind of struggling fantasy score-wise. Only been over this number once out of his last 5 games. Now, the issue is I feel like he typically does play better against the Lakers, but last time out, only 49. And obviously, DK's scoring slightly different. And then the previous game, 52. So close there, but I get why the under is being favored here projection-wise. Let's just pull it up. Again, projected to get under pretty much across the board. So I'm curious, is this just like the highest scoring game on the slate? It is. Okay, so that's probably why we're getting that high of a projection. But this is also one that I think, is a strong bet that we're getting. And guys, we're not getting that any good numbers on NHL right now as well. Typically speaking, we have really strong bets there, like minus 140 bets. We're not getting those right now. So as it sits right now, and it does feel like I'm forcing this in there, guys. And so hopefully we get some good numbers out so I can put out a video for you guys later today, maybe around maybe 2:30 Central. We'll see. It really just depends on the board. But this, I want to make this clear. It feels like we're forcing it in here. So as it sits right now, I'm not going to put as many bets out there this morning as I typically would. But these would be the ones that I'm favoring the most as it sits right now. Okay, so decent. And I just want to share these bets from yesterday. They were kind of painful. So like this one, JT really hurt me across the board, guys, the last 2 days. And so there's so many lines where if JT just doesn't get there, it's a better day. Now this one's not true, but here we go. Here's one where 5 out of 6 JT, another one 5 out of 6 JT, another one right here. So it was almost a huge day yesterday prop wise, just very close with JT there. That's part of the fun of it.